Hello everyone, thanks for coming outside with me today. Today I want to talk about stance, how it applies to your lower back all the way down to your toes, and how to keep yourself consistent, comfortable, and really enjoying the sport of archery. If you missed my video on how to draw a bow, I'll throw a card up here as well as put a link in the description below. If you want to worry about what's happening from the sternum up, you can go ahead and check out that video before you watch this one. But if you're interested in the stance, let's dive right into it. So I break down the lower part of my stance into 5 different parts: my feet, my knees, my thighs, my backside, and finally my hips. So we'll start from the ground up, which I think is the most important. And the first part is your feet. Now, when it comes to your feet, you have to remember that your feet, when you walk, are not perfectly parallel. In fact, they actually sit out to the side. And if you were to ever watch somebody's footprints on the beach in the sand, you'll know that their feet stick out. Some people stick out more than others, but you get the idea. So when I'm standing on the shooting line, I don't want my feet to actually be parallel to each other. I want them to be just slightly splayed a little bit. Now, depending on how much your front foot in particular is splayed towards the target or back towards parallel is a comfort level thing, a thing that's up to each individual archer. For me, I like to get my back foot set just like I would stand if I was standing having a conversation with someone, and then I will move my front foot to it's more appropriate for me to be locked into a very comfortable, very balanced stance. I want my weight to be evenly distributed. When I'm standing and having a conversation with somebody, I might put my hand in my pocket, put a lot of weight onto my back leg, stick my front leg out in front of me, or stand flat-footed, a whole bunch of different things. But I like to put the weight as much as I can evenly between my heels and the balls of my feet. Now, that might change from person to person, but I find that even weight distribution allows more even points of contact with the ground, and you're a little bit more stable. Now, when it comes to consistency of my foot location, I like to have something in between my feet, either a hockey stick or a baseball bat or something, and I'll put my right heel, because I'm a right-handed archer, so my right foot is my back foot. I'll put my right heel up against that hockey stick or that bat, or maybe even a piece of string, or even if you really want to, you could do like a spray painted line in your yard. I'll put my heel up to that and set it off at that 10-20 degree angle. Then my front foot, then I can adjust and play with it until I find a super comfortable position. If I'm shooting in the yard and I have grass that I'm kind of matting down as I'm shooting, then I can actually see, based on every time I go get my arrows and come back, where my foot was, and I can repeat that and have a very consistent, very comfortable shot cycle. Now, moving on up, when it comes to my knees, I don't want them to be locked. We always hear the horror stories of people at weddings and stuff locking their knees, cutting off blood flow, and passing out, and we definitely don't want something like that. We want our knees to be a little bit flexed. You know, of course, we're walking to and from the target, retrieving our arrows, so blood flow is always happening. I want to be relaxed, just like if I'm having a conversation with somebody. I don't want to be straight-legged and stiff. A 2x4 standing on its end is really likely to tip over. I want to have a little bit of bend, activate those lower shin, knee ligaments and muscles, and have a little better balance and be significantly more comfortable. So the further we move away from the foot, we lose sensitivity, right? We start getting into larger and larger muscle groups, which are better for gross motor skills. So bear with me for a second. But think about this, right? Your ankles are very used to keeping you upright. Your feet and the arches and how your toes and heels interact are very good at keeping you balanced. But your quads, your hamstrings, and your backside are larger muscles. They're just meant to keep you upright. That's their whole goal. So when we start doing weird things like standing still and shooting arrows and turning our body one way or the other, they don't really know how to react. And so for me, the hips, the thighs, and the backside are probably the most important part of your stance. Just like our knees, we want them to be relaxed. We don't want to clench up our backside. We don't want to stiffen up our quads. And we don't want our hips to be in an awkward position where they're sticking towards this target, or very unlikely but possible, sticking back away from the target. We want to be as upright as we possibly can, practicing good posture, which is hard to find these days. When we're in that good posture stance, it allows our fine motor skills and our smaller muscles and ligaments to work in the balancing act, and allow our larger muscles to just focus on what they usually do, which, well, I'm doing right now, which is just keeping me upright. I don't want to clench anything or flex anything, and I want to keep my hips as parallel to where my feet are doing as possible. I don't want my foot to be more open and my hips more closed, and vice versa. I don't want my hips to be super open and have my feet super closed. We want everything to be as consistent and as linear as possible. That's where we're going to get the most comfort and the most repeatability in our form. Remember, the upright part where you're actually drawing the bow and all the fine motor skills in your hands and in the gross motor in your back and your shoulders for drawing the bow is of course incredibly important. But if you're not stable, you're like a camera on a monopod or a bipod. It's going to tip over. But if you're more stable, like a camera on a tripod, you're able to have that much firmer base, and then your upright portion doesn't have to worry about stability, and it can focus on just executing and sending that arrow down range. So that's all for this video. If you have any questions about bow stance, drawing a bow, or anything else that pertains to the sport of archery or archery hunting, follow the links in the description below. Hit me up on Facebook and Instagram. My email's even down there if you want that more personal touch. And of course, always leave a comment here on YouTube. Hope you're able to get outside, enjoy the sport of archery, archery hunting if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation, and we'll get to see you next time.